Hello, today we're going to be talking about the craziest catfishing stories that I could find on the internet. Our first story is referred to as the Riverside Catfish, and this story is about a former law enforcement officer from Virginia. He catfished a 15-year-old girl in California by pretending to be a teenager online. Austin Lee Edwards, 28 years old, lived in North Tazewell, Virginia. To his neighbors and co-workers, he appeared to be a pillar of the community. He had recently been hired as a deputy for the Washington County Sheriff's Office, and he had previously served as a Virginia state trooper. However, behind his professional facade, Edwards was a predatory groomer. He created a fake online persona, posing as a 17-year-old boy, and began targeting a 15-year-old girl living 2,500 miles away in Riverside, California. Over the course of several months, Edward used his fake profile to build a relationship with the teenager. He used catfishing techniques to gain her trust, sharing photos of a handsome young man and engaging in constant digital communication. After a while of talking, Edwards then obtained the girl's home address. It is believed that as the girl began to pull away, or as the reality of the situation became more clear, Edwards' obsession turned into a violent, premeditated plan. In late November 2022, Edwards took time off work. He didn't tell anyone his destination. He loaded his vehicle with tactical gear and weapons and began a cross-country drive from Virginia to California. Now, this isn't a short trip. This is over 40 hours of driving. And this highlights the terrifying level of intent. This wasn't a crime of passion or a heat of the moment mistake. It was a calculated mission. On the morning of November 25th, 2022, which happened to be Black Friday, he arrived at the quiet residential street in Riverside. He entered the home and committed an atrocity that shocked the nation. He murdered the girl's entire family. Mark, Sherry, and Brooke Winnick, the girl's grandfather, the girl's grandmother, and the girl's mother. After killing them, he set the house on fire to destroy evidence and hide the crime scene. He then took the 15-year-old girl by force, shoved her into his red Kia Soul, and sped away. The nearby neighbors noticed smoke billowing from the Winnick house and saw a man walking to a car with a young girl who appeared distressed. They called 911 immediately. Because of the detailed description provided by neighbors, police were able to track Edwards' vehicle as it headed toward the Mojave Desert. Hours later, county sheriff's deputies spotted the car in a remote area near Kelso. When deputies attempted to pull him over, Edwards opened fire on the police officers with a rifle. A massive shootout ensued. During the chaos, he was shot and killed by police. The girl was rescued from the vehicle. While she was physically unharmed by the gunfire, she had just witnessed the destruction of her entire world. The investigation that followed revealed massive failures in the system. Despite being a law enforcement officer, Edward had a history of mental health issues. Years prior, he had been detained for psychiatric evaluation after self-harming and threatening his father. This information somehow did not prevent him from being hired as a state trooper. Investigators found that he had been communicating with multiple minors online using different aliases. The 15-year-old survivor was placed in counseling. The community of Riverside rallied around her, but the case remains a permanent scar on her town. The Riverside case changed the way many people view online friends. It proved that a catfish isn't always a lonely person looking for attention. Sometimes they are a dangerous predator using the internet to bypass the physical barriers of distance and home security. This next story is referred to as the Louisville Slugger story. Now, this story starts with a girl named Tanya on a popular dating site. Tanya was everything a guy could want. Early 20s, blonde, incredibly fit, and seemingly very into him. They hit it off immediately, moving from the app to texting and eventually long phone calls. For 3 months, they built a relationship. Tanya would send candid photos of her at the gym, at work, or just lounging at home. She seemed real, consistent, and genuinely interested in his life. Eventually, they decided it was time to meet in person. Tanya suggested that they meet at a hotel a few towns away from where the narrator lived. She claimed that she was traveling for work and had a room booked. She even sent him a photo of herself in lingerie, telling him she'd be waiting for him in that exact outfit. The narrator was excited, but he also had a nagging sense of, this is too good to be true. Because he was nervous, he decided to do something that likely saved his life. He arrived at the hotel 45 minutes early. Instead of going straight to the lobby, the narrator parked his car in a dark corner of the lot with a clear view of the entrance and the exterior walkways of the hotel. He told himself he was just settling his nerves, but his subconscious was on high alert. After about 20 minutes of waiting, a beat-up sedan pulled up into the lot and parked a few rows away from him. The narrator watched as the car doors opened. 3 people stepped out. The Tanya figure, a woman, stepped out who looked nothing like the photos. She was much older and dressed in heavy dark clothing. Then 2 large men followed her out. One was wearing a hooded sweatshirt pulled tight. The other was wearing a Michael Myers style Halloween mask pushed up onto his forehead. The narrator froze as he watched them. They weren't carrying luggage or flowers. Instead, the woman reached back into the car and pulled out a heavy wooden Louisville Slugger baseball bat. One of the men was seen adjusting something in his waistband that appeared to be a handgun. The trio didn't go to the lobby. They used a side entrance and headed straight for the room number Tanya had given the narrator. Through the window of his car, the narrator watched them enter the room. Seconds later, his phone buzzed. It was a text from Tanya. "I'm in the room and I'm so bored. Where are you? Hurry up, the door is unlocked. Just come right in." He sat in the dark, watching the door they had just walked through. He realized that if he had arrived on time, he would have walked into an unlocked room expecting a beautiful girl in lingerie, only to be met by 2 men with a baseball bat and a mask. It wasn't just a catfish, it was a setup for a violent robbery or kidnapping. The narrator didn't respond. He didn't call out to them. He quietly started his car, kept his headlights off until he was out of the parking lot, and drove straight home. He blocked the number and deleted his dating profiles that night. He never contacted the police because he felt he had no proof of a crime, only a terrifying suspicion. The story ends with him sitting in his house, jumping at every small noise, realizing how close he had came to becoming a headline. This story starts with a girl named Renee, who was 20 years old and lived in Sydney, Australia. She was close friends with a woman named Camelia. The two had a complex history, having been in a brief romantic relationship in high school before becoming best friends. In 2011, Camelia introduced Renee to a man named Braden via text and social media. Camelia claimed Braden was a friend of hers, a handsome, tough, but loving man who was currently serving time in prison for a motorcycle accident. For nearly 2 years, Renee and Braden were in a committed, intense relationship. They exchanged thousands of text messages every month, though Braden always claimed he could only listen or used voice masking and static excuses due to being in prison. Renee was completely devoted. She sent him letters and photos, planned their wedding, refused to date anyone else, staying faithful to a man she had never met, even bought a wedding dress and scouted locations for their future home. Every time Renee grew suspicious or asked to meet Braden, controlled by Camelia, he would use emotional blackmail. He would threaten to hurt himself or accuse Renee of not being strong enough to wait for him. Much like in Sweet Bobby, the deception wasn't just one person. To make Braden feel real, Camelia created a network. Renee would receive messages from Braden's associates and family members who confirmed his stories. In reality, every single one of these people was Camelia using different prepaid SIM cards and fake accounts. On August 5th, 2013, the web began to untangle. Renee was pushing harder than ever to finally see Braden. That afternoon, Braden sent Renee a final devastating text message. "I can't do this anymore. It's over." He told her he was ending the relationship and that they would never be together. Renee was inconsolable. She reached out to her best friend Camelia for comfort. Camelia, still playing the role of the supportive friend, stayed on the phone with her while simultaneously being the one who sent the breakup text from the Braden account. Later that day, Renee drove her car to the Gap, a notorious cliffside location in Sydney. She sent a final text to her mother and jumped to her death. When the police began investigating her suicide, they went to find Braden to inform him. They quickly discovered a horrifying reality. Braden did not exist. There was no record of him being in the prison system, no birth certificate, and no digital footprint that didn't lead back to one person. The investigation revealed that Camila had been using two phones to ping-pong messages between herself, Renee, and the fictional Braden. The most disturbing part? Camila's motive. During a 2020 coroner inquest, it was suggested that Camila created Braden to keep Renee trapped in a virtual relationship so Renee would never date another man, essentially keeping Renee for herself in a twisted, proxy romantic way. Despite the evidence of the psychological torture Renee endured, Camila was never charged with the crime. At the time, catfishing and this level of coercive control did not fall under specific crime statutes in New South Wales. This last story is named The Unknown Number. In early 2021, Kendra was a well-respected member of her community in Beale City, Michigan. She was a mother and a girls' basketball coach at her daughter's school when her teenage daughter and the daughter's boyfriend started receiving a barrage of hateful, threatening text messages and social media DMs. Kendra was the first person to step up. She acted as the supportive mother, comforting her daughter during crying spells and even taking the lead in trying to find out who the bully was. The bully knew everything: what the daughter was wearing, who she was talking to, and where she was at any given moment. This led the family to believe it was a student at the high school. Kendra eventually went to the school and the local police to report the harassment. She demanded that the school do more to find the person responsible for hurting her child. Because the harassment involved the school's Wi-Fi and several students, the school reached out to the local authorities. However, the bully was using VPNs to mask their IP address, making it look like the messages were originating from all over the world. The local police were stumped and eventually called the FBI Cybercrime Division. The FBI began tracking the data behind the messages. They discovered that while the sender was using spoofing apps and VPNs to hide their identity, they were making a critical mistake. They were occasionally logging into the accounts using home Wi-Fi and her personal cell phone data. After a year of investigation, the FBI compiled a 349-page report of digital evidence. The data didn't lead to a mean girl at school or a disgruntled ex-boyfriend. All roads led back to the daughter's own mother. In December 2022, Kendra was arrested. The community was in total shock. The woman who had been coaching the basketball team and fighting for her daughter's safety was the one sending the messages. When confronted with the FBI's evidence, Kendra reportedly confessed. She had used various apps to hide her identity and even created a persona for the bully to make the harassment feel more authentic. While a clear motive was never fully explained, psychologists pointed toward a version of Munchausen syndrome by proxy. By making her daughter a victim, Kendra could become the hero who protected her, control her daughter's social life and relationships, and ensure her daughter remained dependent on her for emotional support. In 2023, Kendra pleaded guilty to 2 counts of stalking a minor. She was sentenced to 19 months to 5 years in prison. The judge called her actions vile and unfathomable, noting that she had systematically destroyed her daughter's mental health for nearly 500 days. If you like this episode, feel free to check out some of the other videos that I did, like the people who survived the bear attacks. And also comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff.